Hi, in this video, I sit down with Alex Fraga, a colleague of mine who's doing his doctorate at U of T, who came from the southeast region of Brazil, and who had lots of insight to share about purpose, meaning, connection, education, and his journey coming to Canada and exploring the music that he's exploring. I hope you enjoy and find that this video is insightful. One of my favorite moments is when he talked about connection. I find myself thinking about that in the editing room quite often, so I hope you can connect to parts of this conversation and gain something from it. Hello!
How's it going?
Very good. Nice to see you.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
This is Alex Fraga. Did I say that right?
Yeah, pretty good.
Pretty good. Okay. So tell me, where are you from?
So I was born and raised in Brazil. Lived there most of my life, except for the 3 years that I've been here in Canada and 3 years I was in the US. So I would say I was there for like 24 years. The first time that I left the country was when I was 20. Also, it was where I got most of my music education. And then I decided to move here.
Okay, where in Brazil were you from?
My hometown is called Divinópolis in the state of Minas Gerais. So I'm kind of like in the central area of the country. As a reference, I usually use Rio and Brasilia, which is the capital, as a reference. So Brasilia is right in the middle, Rio is by the coast, so I'm like right in between the two. So it's the most populated part of the country. And because I'm like in the middle, it's usually the state where people pass by when they're going somewhere, right? If you go to São Paulo, to the capital, that's where I need to go. If you go to the north, where the forest is, that's where I need to pass. The cool story about my home state that I tell everyone is about the name. So Minas Gerais, Minas because of mines.
Okay.
So when Portugal arrived in Brazil, they stayed by the coast for, I would say, like 40 years. And then at some point, they had the idea of like going further to the west to see what they could find. And they run into a lot of gold there. So they create a new state or a new area or province. I don't even know how to call it because they had a different name then, just to control all the mining activities. And then the name remained the same since then. We still have a lot of iron and other things too. So, yeah.
Good. I saw online that it seems like quite the urban area. Is that exactly?
Yeah, I would say like the whole like region. We call this region the Southeast region, which consists of the state of Rio de Janeiro, the state of São Paulo, Minas Gerais, where I'm from, and another little state that people don't know very well that's called Espírito Santo. So those four states are the southeast of Brazil, and it's where most of the people live. Mostly because of São Paulo, but also the capital of my home state where I used to live for, I moved there when I was 17. So I was there for like 10 years. I was going abroad a couple of times, but overall, I think I was there for like 10 years. It's a fairly large city too. I would say like as big as Toronto, where we are right now. So around like 2 million people or something. Yeah. So yeah, fairly well populated.
Nice. Yeah. You mentioned that your family has a farm.
Oh yeah, we do. Actually, we had another one, a bigger one when I was growing up, and I used to go there every single weekend, just having a good time, playing with the animals, running around all day, creating games, and climbing trees. Yeah. There was a lot of space there. There was a mountain on the top that we used to go to. We had like picnics there, did lots of fun things. The moment I started getting involved with music, teenage years, I wasn't as interested as much in going to the farm for some reason. I wanted to sit in front of the computer and play music. Those were the main things. So my dad ended up selling the farm, and then he bought another one, I'll say like 4 years later. Both of my parents, they grew up at a farm in smaller cities. So I guess this is something that they really crave, right? This connection to nature and like having their gardens and like taking care of animals and other things.
Definitely.
Yeah, but anytime I'm there, that's where I go. They live there now. They might move back to the city soon, but they have been living there for like 3 or 4 years. So anytime I'm there, that's where I stay. Nice. And it's great. It's a nice contrast with like between Toronto and like all the work that I do here and the life that they have right now. Yeah.
I know you recently moved near High Park. Do you feel like you enjoy that nature as well?
100%. Yes. I feel like it's funny. I feel like the fact that I'm here like alone, I mean alone as without my family, doesn't mean I'm not making friends here. But I feel like I've been craving like those things that make me connect to where I'm from, and nature is one of them. The other one is baking, believe it or not. Because when I was growing up, my dad had a bakery. Did I tell you that story?
No.
Probably not. Well, growing up, my dad had a bakery. So that was the main thing for our family for almost 20 years. My dad opened the bakery like a few months before my older brother was born, and so I grew up like seeing like and eating fresh made bread every single day. And after living on my own for like 10 years, I just started craving it again. And like it not only because it's healthier and better, but also because like when I make it and I smell it, like it brings memories. And I don't know, it just makes me feel good. It makes me relax. And same thing for the park, just go for a walk in the morning has been very helpful and also productive too. I think I get more done once I'm like centered, you know. Yeah.
You strike me as one of the most productive people I've met. You know,
The most productive people.
I think so. You're very driven, focused, organized, and you have this amazing ability at having a strong business sense, seeing things black and white, but picking things apart and knowing what to do next.
Yeah.
How did you make the decision to start pursuing music? And I know maybe from your younger age, it might not have been more clear, but as time went on, it became more clear. So tell me about how you became clear on this journey that you're on now.
I think there are two parts to answer this question. One is like this personality thing that I have that can be an issue sometimes of just like always going directly to the point, which has helped me a lot. Getting here also created a few problems, but that's okay. I mean, nothing is perfect in life. And we learn the good and the bad things about our personalities over time. But that's definitely something that I got from my family, I would say. Both of my parents and my grandparents are very driven. I just told you that so my grandparents, they both had a farm and they used to live there for many years. So that's where my parents grew up. And like at some point, I remember my mom's dad, so my grandfather on my mom's side, they had like, so my mom has like 9 or 10 siblings. And at some point, her dad just looked at the entire family, not making enough money with the farm. And it was at this moment where like industry was growing and like all the small land production or farm production was shrinking in Brazil. And he looks at the family and is like, we're gonna move to the city. Just makes his decision like out of nowhere without discussing with anyone in the family. It's like, yeah, we're going. And of course, like all the kids complain because like they have roots there, they have friends, they have school. And he's like, nope, we're gonna move. So they moved to this city, which was like a 20-minute drive from where the farm was. They stayed there for 2-3 years. Business was not going well. I think he had a bar for some time. He was driving a taxi for some time. And at some point he did it again. It was like, we're gonna move to a bigger city. And then he left. and that's where my parents met and where I grew up, Divinopolis. And a similar thing with my dad was a little different. My dad was the oldest one, and like he had to leave at a very young age to make money and help with family. His dad wasn't really making a lot of money and wasn't really working hard enough, you know, drinking a lot, and also like big family, I don't know, 7, 8 siblings. He was the oldest, so when he was 16 or 17, 15, I can't remember, he dropped out of school and just went to São Paulo to work. So he worked at like big farms there, and then at some point made it to Divinopolis where he met my mom, started working at a shoe factory, saved enough money to open his own factory. And
wow.
And the business started declining, and then he was like, well, this is not working anymore, I'll quit and start something else. So he sold everything, married my mom, and after talking to some friends, he was like, I'm gonna open a bakery. Never baked before, no experience at all. I was like, I'm gonna open a bakery. First 2 or 3 years, he was like struggling a little bit. Then the business started like working, and it became the main thing for him, and that's how he retired now. So I've been surrounded by like very driven people, and like when they decide they want something, they go for it, and they don't listen to people saying the opposite. So I think like that was part of the process in making me decide to become a musician. The other part was it was a very long process actually. So I was already playing music when I was 14, 15, mostly for fun, playing with friends at school, and like a few weird things started happening. Like at some point, I had my drum set in my room. Not sure if I told you that story too, but this is a good one too. I was playing drum set in my room, no soundproofing or anything, so it was very loud. And at some point, I used to get complaints every now and then, right? Like they phone and I was like, yeah, can you stop? Like my mom is sick, or like we have someone trying to sleep, and I was like, you need to stop. And I was usually okay with it. But at some day I was playing, and someone came to the house actually and was like, okay, they're gonna ask me to stop playing again. And it's like, who's playing this drum set? Like, because I have a band and then I'm looking for a drummer. Hey. And then you just sound pretty good. So we started talking and I joined the band just like out of nowhere. And
you didn't move anywhere. You just
I was just playing at home. It's just that I didn't have the soundproof, so that was my marketing then, right? They heard me playing and I guess I got sort of lucky. I mean, it wasn't as if like we're touring a lot. We're like mostly in the same city most of the time. We play like 2, 3, 4 festivals. We did pretty well in most of them. They're all older than me, so they paid to record our first CD. So I had a little bit of studio experience then. I was performing, and then people start asking questions, right? Like, what are you gonna do? You're 16, and then all of a sudden 17, last year of high school. So you need to make a decision. I already knew I wanted to be a musician, but I knew I had to be careful expressing that to everyone in my family, because there isn't one single musician in my family. The way people see arts in general is they're just not very receptive, right? And but at the same time, the advantage that I had is that I always worked hard. Always. Like good grades at school, top 5 of the class the whole time, always showing up, always consistent. And I guess that helped when it came to convincing them. Like,
no doubt.
I told them, like, this is what I want to do. I know it's going to be hard. I know I'll struggle. I don't care. I want to do this. And in my mind, what I thought was, I'm not picking something to make money. I'm not picking something to like that will make me rich. I'm not picking something because of status. I'm picking something that will make me suffer. That's what I thought. Yeah. And because life is a struggle sometimes, right?
I'd say most of the time.
Yeah, doesn't matter which choice you make, you're gonna struggle with something. And I was picking what I wanted to struggle with. So that was in my head, what I was choosing. It's like, it's gonna be hard. I'm gonna work for I don't know how many years. It might not work. Doesn't matter what I choose. There's a chance something's not gonna work out. The only thing that I feel like it is worth it, and I feel like is gonna make me feel fulfilled, is going for the music career. And at the same time, if I don't go for it, the only thing I can think about is like how much I'll regret not trying.
Wow.
I would feel like a coward. It's like,
you were 17 at this time.
17, yeah.
You know, I think a lot of people here, when it comes to that age and end of high school as well, a lot of kids, they have the idea that you get a good job, you get a good education, and then you're going to be happy instead. And that's been the story that we've been told a lot, especially like in an Indian culture.
Yeah.
But nobody understands that if you choose something that you're going to pursue, you're going to struggle, and it's going to be hard, and you have to put in that work. I think that but the fact that you were aware of that at that age really showed how mature you were, and how that was in your character from a very early age. And I think whatever happened to help you gather those thoughts, from my perspective, I think is the biggest advantage that you have. Because it's not just that you work insanely hard and you're very focused. I think it's the level of like humble realism that life is suffering, and it's going to be a shit show, and you just got to pick your battles. And I think early on you were always a fighter, I'd say, and you're surrounded by other fighters in the terms of really people who are driven and wanting to work for something. But I think making that connection is not something many young people in that age make, especially at such a crucial time. And I think that might have been one of, if I were to see it, that was a good advantage that you would have.
And it's not different back home than it is here. I was just a weird person the whole time. I feel like part of me was like very, I don't know. I kind of, when I know what I want, I really know what I want, and when I'm not sure, I'm very clear. It's like I don't know. But after I make a decision, it's very clear. It's like this is where I want to go. This is where I need to go, and I guess this is what led me to where I am today. And I had this conversation with my family recently too. Like I was always like a little different than the people that were around me, like the other kids my age, and maybe that's why I'm not in the same space that they are right now. Doesn't mean I'm better or worse than them. It just means that I wanted different things for my life, and I went out there and I was trying to find them.
You mentioned that you were aware that bringing up that you might want to do music would not be accepted.
Yeah.
Have you, before that realization, did you feel like you've tried to do that, or were you just aware that that was how people talked about people pursuing music or arts in general? Like how did you know that? Or what was, how did you know that?
I'm not sure if that was like ever expressed to me like directly, but you might have noticed that I'm always observing my surroundings. I'm always like open eyes. Sometimes people read me as a quiet person, and it might look like I'm like tuning out and not paying attention to anything, but it means like I'm always analyzing and thinking about things in my head. And the experiences that I had up until that point, like having this band, touring, seeing people, talking to people in the music industry and talking to people outside, made me realize like how the community I was part of was seeing music, or seeing like performing or art or creating things. The conversation with my other friends at high school, I was very lucky to went to a private high school. And from the conversations that I had with my friends at the time, I knew that like making this decision means I'm different, I'm risking everything, and then people maybe wouldn't take it very well. And they would try to force me to do something different. And it did happen. I remember, I would say like the first 5 years after I left, every time I came back, they were like, what are you doing? It's like, why are you doing this? Maybe even more than 5. It happened with my friends, high school friends. I was actually talking to one of them before I came here to talk to you today. Yeah. And so this friend of mine, he used to make fun of me a lot because of this decision. Joking, right? Joking. 17, 18, 20s. Like, it's funny to make jokes and talk about life decisions. And he just had a daughter. She was born like a few days ago. And he sent me the playlist that he made for his daughter. And it's like, what do you think? Do you approve? It's like, oh yeah, this is awesome. It's just like mostly classical music. And I was like, oh, so you should be careful so she doesn't make the same life decisions that I made, right? It's just kind of joking. It's like, oh no, we really respect her, right? If makes a decision. But this is the same person that I was like, telling jokes. And I mean, I don't take it personally. Like I know how much he has changed since then, and it's just funny like how the tables turn. I had the same conversation, for example, with my dad on 2019 after I came back from my master's. I was working a lot, not making a lot of money, very stressed because of many things, like including like professional and personal life, and he tried to start this conversation twice. Like, what are you doing? Like, are you still gonna do this? I was applying, so I was not only like working, but also applying for professor jobs with universities in Brazil, and like always getting to the final round, not quite getting in. And then, yeah, he's just trying like pressuring. I felt like I was being pressured, but maybe he didn't do that intentionally. I know he just wanted the best for me. He's like, now I know that like he wants me to have a comfortable life and not be stressed about things all the time. But at the same time, it was very unhelpful during that time to keep hearing like, why you're not making it? And at the same time, me being not very happy with the way the system was treating me. And all of that led up to me being here now. Yeah.
I find that interesting that perhaps that pressure could also be translate into doubt in your experience, that maybe what he's saying, although he does want the best for you, in that moment it feels like you're doubting me, or it makes you doubt yourself, especially with a lot of the challenges that you're facing systemically that maybe we can talk about as well. And I think that confidence that comes in those moments really shows you who you are.
Yeah.
And I think in any circumstance, when everybody's faced with a challenge, where they're faced with doubt and self-doubt, but they still make a decision in the face of that, that shows either the person's drive, interest, and their character, what really matters to them.
Yeah.
And it seems like you've always made decisions that led you here, and it proves that what you're doing with your life matters to you, and whether it be anything else, is in this case is music, that it matters to you. And I think that message speaks a lot to me. I've definitely feel that from knowing you and learning about you, that it's very clear that what you're doing matters to you. And I think that's something that not everybody has the fortunate opportunity to find.
Yeah. You should think about them more often.
Perhaps, but I know a lot of people, when they think about like what do you want to do with your life, or who are you, and what's your career goals and all that kind of thing, there's a lot of vague questions, but really it's like what matters to you. You have one life, how are you going to live it? And I think those moments really show that.
Yeah. And I wouldn't say like I was confident in this choice the whole time. I wasn't. Just like I really knew what I wanted and like what I care about. That was never all the questions. Like I care about what I do, and I care, and there was a reason why I made this choice. Like I care about this thing, and I think this thing is important to me, to the people around me, to society as a whole, and I wouldn't be happy doing something like different. It doesn't mean that like doing something different, like working with something else, would make me like sad or disappointed, or that I don't know. There's no point in doing it. It's just that I don't know. I care. This makes me happy, and I want to do more of it. I was very close from giving up though, especially pandemic. 2020. That was like I went to the edge. I was like, it's time to make a change, and I actually started applying for other jobs. But the last shot was maybe I should apply for this thing in Canada and see what happens too. And that was the first thing that worked out. So I was like, well, I have this opportunity. Let's see what happens. And I knew it was something important to me, and that it wouldn't be easy to come here and start again in a new country, not knowing anyone. But yeah, don't regret it.
Good. Oh, well, I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So tell me about the schooling that you've done, because I know you did some schooling in Brazil. You went to the States. And now you're here. You're at U of T doing your dissertation, your PhD.
Yeah.
So tell me about all those different elements and how it got you here.
Yeah. So when I decided when I decided I wanted music as a career, there was no option other than going to school. I don't think my family would have taken me just like, I'm going to move to a big city and just play music. I think that was not an option. I came, and not only me, but like the whole community, my friends from high school, everybody assumed that the way to go is get a degree. It was the only option. So I could get a degree in music. So that's what I did. I moved to the capital. I was 17 when I did that. Another interesting part about that story is that I was so driven that I didn't like went to the last month of classes at high school because my grades were so good. The moment I passed, I was like, I'm done. Goodbye. I'm gonna take music classes now. So I left like a month and a half early. Everybody was still taking classes and doing their thing. I was studying music. So I went to the capital. I had to study for like 3 or 4 months for the admission exams. I think the system there is a little different than here and in North America in general. Like at the time, you had to apply and take the tests. You go there, you have a written test. Not only about music. There's a first round with like general high school content, and then the second round was music theory, music history, and history tests, like general history, Brazilian history, and world history. So I was studying for the second round already because I was very confident that like the level wouldn't be like it would be very hard for me to pass the first round with the amount of work I was putting in, not only like on that year, but like every single year for my education. So somehow I managed to pass, which was very hard because I was playing drum set most of the time. I could read rhythms. I didn't have any ear training, no reading skills. And and I had like 2 or 3 months to figure it out.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, I figured out what I needed to pass the test, and then I had to struggle the first 2 years to catch up with everybody else. But I managed. But the person that was teaching me at the time told me not to apply for percussion right away. He was like, you should apply for either conducting or composition. Because then there's more you can do. You can do arrangements. You're going to learn about other things. There's just like more work available to you. So that's what he pitched. I had no idea what I was doing and what I was getting into. I didn't know the school. I was like, yeah, I'll do it. So I signed up. I passed. And my first year, I saw the percussion group at the university playing. I saw it once. I saw all the instruments I've never seen in my life. Marimba, timpani, all the orchestra stuff. I was like, this is amazing. I need to play with these guys. I'm not going to graduate without playing with this group. Otherwise, this was like a waste of time.
Well done. That's amazing.
So I decided to switch. I started, and then like, so it was my first year of undergrad. I was studying for another exam, which is like the audition to switch my major from composition to percussion. I went to this audition. I was like shaking. I wasn't confident at all. I had to play. So you had to play a snare drum study, something on a keyboard percussion, so marimba, vibraphone, or xylophone. I played something on drum set. I can't remember, and I think probably sight reading, something like that. So like nothing like too crazy, but considering how much experience I had in everything else, especially mallet percussion, I was like scared. I played, it wasn't great. The teacher came to me and was like, so, I don't think you're on the same level that the other students, which was obvious, but I'm gonna let you like take some lessons, see what happens. If you put in the work, you don't need to do the test again. Okay. If you don't, I'm gonna make you do the test. If you don't pass, you don't pass. You're out.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm gonna work hard. And then I started working hard, like a madman for I don't know how long. 1 year in, I was already applying for this big exchange program that we had at the time. It was like a government-funded exchange. Basically, you go to a different country, everything is paid for 1 year. You go there, you study, and then you come back. So I was already in the process when I was switching my major from composition to percussion. So the moment I started taking private percussion lessons and like trying to work as hard as I could, I got accepted to this program. So that's how I left the country for the first time. So it was like second to third year of my undergrad. I left, came back. The other catch about this change that I did is that I had to take 4 years of private lessons. It was a requirement, no matter what. Wow. For graduation, it was a school requirement. So that meant that instead of graduating in 4 years, I had to wait for 6 years. Again, don't regret it. School was free. It was a federal, it was run by the government, so a federal school. So I didn't have to pay anything extra. It's just that I had to be more patient. So I did that, went abroad for 1 year, came back, graduated in 2013, I believe. During my last year, someone from the States came as a visiting professor. So my percussion teacher left for his postdoctorate, and this guy came to my school because he got a Fulbright grant to be in Brazil for a year. So he was teaching some lessons at the university and doing his research. His research is about the berimbau, the instrument that I have right there on the side. Amazing. And never played the instrument before, never seen it. So we had like one workshop in preparation for his arrival, and like we learned how to set it up because like he was the North American guy and he was gonna come to a Brazilian institution and teach us how to like put together the Brazilian instrument. My teacher was like, no, this is not gonna happen. So we had a workshop to learn like how to put it together and everything, basic techniques. He came, we started playing. He has like his own project where he uses the instrument in a way that's not very traditional. It's like
naturally, I'd say any American that comes to a different country, they do things different.
Yeah, and the way the instrument is used most of the time is tied to like a martial art called capoeira. So the instrument is not like the foreground; it's the movements are the foreground. The instrument is just accompanying the singing and everything else that is happening. And he did an instrumental music project with this instrument, just berimbau, nothing else. So we started playing his repertoire. It was so fun. I had like such a great time. we got a grant to go to South Africa, perform at a conference. So they put together this conference with a bunch of bow music instruments, just the different instruments that look like the one that we play, but the instruments are from different parts of Africa. And it was the first time they ever done that. So we met like elderly people that have been playing this instrument for like 50 years,
Wow.
showing like different techniques and like small versions of the instruments that you use your mouth as like a resonating chamber. It's like crazy story, side story, but crazy experience. I ended up applying to study with this person in the US for my master's. So that's how I left for the second time. Nice. So that was 2013 to 15, or 14 to 16, can't remember the dates exactly. I finished my master's, went back. I'm getting all the dates wrong. It was 17, 19, because I remember it was the year before the pandemic when I came back.
Okay.
Back to Belo Horizonte, which is the capital of my home state, where I used to live.
No, I'm curious what the master's was. What did you focus on in that time period with your teacher?
My master's, I did a little bit of everything. This teacher of mine, he had a technique, a way of playing and approaching like all the instruments, all the classical instruments, snare drum, timpani, other things, that was very different from what I was used to and was trained on. So I kind of like rebuilt my technique from scratch. I applied for a bunch of orchestra auditions. So I was like studying excerpts and trying to gig whenever I could. Working in the US is hard as an immigrant, like when you have a student visa, right? So like I was trying to do a few gigs here and there when I could, but there wasn't really much I could do. I was teaching at a nonprofit, and I did a little bit of composing when I was there too, but it was definitely not the main thing. And I ended up playing with his Berimbau group there too, right? So we played with a group that was formed in Brazil right before I left, and then I played with the group in the US doing my master's. So yeah, that's the overall idea of everything that I did when I was there. And then I came back 2019, and because I was moving so much, it's hard because you lose all your connections, right? Like the groups that you're playing with, they found a replacement, and it takes some time for you to start getting gigs again. Same thing for teaching, like your students found other teachers, and then I was trying to put my life together again in 2019. Then 2020 came, and then like everything falls apart. At the same time, I was also applying for the university jobs that I mentioned, and I ran into the issue of my diploma not being approved right away. And you need to go through a validation process whenever you get a diploma abroad. And it's the same here in Canada, right? You basically take your diploma to an academic institution, they compare it to what they do, and they tell it whether or not it's valid or not.
Okay. Interesting. It's tough. So it sounds like it's tough in Brazil on that manner, but it's also tough in Canada for other international folks to have their diplomas.
Yes, but it's easier here than it was there.
Okay.
Because of bureaucracy and the way the system works there. Like right now in Brazil, there's one single website that you use for all the validation process in the entire country, and you pick which institution it goes to. And the things that the website is unified, the institutions can tweak little things depending on like what they do and how they deal with that process. And then there's a lot of reading and preparation you need to do that, so you understand like how each institution or how the institution that you're applying for wants the documents and what's the criteria that you're going to use to decide whether or not you're going to get the validation or anything. And the reason why this is so tricky is because for certain professions is a big deal, right? If you're in the medical field or anything like that, you need to know like what kind of experience this person has, what kind of courses they've taken.
There's
like
a lot of specifics, I imagine. A heart surgeon is very different than a different type of surgeon.
Exactly.
And all the training that comes with that, and all their experience with that.
Yeah, and also like other fields such as like law, because law is different.
Law is very different.
You know the law, so it can be very. I understand why it can be very difficult, and I don't want to say like it needs to be easy. But I work with music. Why does it need to be hard for me? I don't know. I thought I was doing something that was important for me and to my home country when I left. I was there talking about Brazilian culture. I was there researching Brazilian culture and like spreading the word about the berimbau, the Brazilian instrument that I play all the time. My research in my master's was about samba and talking about like why this genre has so much visibility there and then didn't used to when it was created. And there was the whole debate like why did you decide to market this kind of music as like a symbol of our culture, when like 40 years before that, the same people were attacking the same music, like trying to raise the debate. And then I come back and I run into a lot of issues with this diploma that I had, mostly because where I went to in Illinois, we did basically a research article as my final research output. And at the institution where I applied for, they do like an actual dissertation, which means it's longer. That's the main difference, right? You expend more in certain things. I'm not saying that the two should be similar or not. It's just that I went to institution and I did what they asked, and then they wanted me to do the way they used to do.
Right.
For this reason, the pandemic was also an issue because the universities didn't know what to do when the pandemic came, and I believe like the whole working from home thing took a while for them to figure it out. So it took them over a year to look at my process. And then by the time they looked at it, they decided to deny the application. During that time, I was struggling to like get the jobs that I wanted. As I mentioned, I was getting to the final round pretty much every single time, but like play second, third, and then it got to a point that the last round was they basically evaluate your resume and give you points depending on like what you have on your resume. I don't agree with the system, but that's how it works for public jobs in Brazil. They give you points, and whoever gets the most points like is the winner.
Okay.
And because I didn't have that diploma validated, they didn't give me the points. And the thing that gives you the most points are degrees. If you have like undergrad, it's like 10. If you have a master, it's like 30, and you have a doctorate, it's like 50. It's like a big gap between them. So if I had that, I would have gotten a job. It was a temporary job, like a 2-year contract. I remember getting the result the same day I emailed the professor here at U of T. Because I already knew her. I came here to visit doing my master's in 2018. I knew the school. I got to see the city a little bit. I knew it looked like a good place to live. And that day I was like, I'm done. I'm not gonna waste my time here. Right. Unfortunately, it happened again, like 2 or 3 months later.
Really?
But this time I knew I wanted to avoid the problem. So before they looked at my resume, I emailed the whole the committee saying like, hey, by the way, you're gonna look at my resume. You're gonna see that this document was not validated yet. I'm in the process. I got the process. It was denied by one institution, but I'm gonna get it approved in this other institution. I just need a little bit of time to figure that out. They say yes, they offer me the job, and the next step is signing the contract. Then they say, you need to have this figured out by the day you sign the contract, otherwise you cannot sign the contract.
Okay.
Turns out I tried to speed up the process with this other institution. I sent them an email saying like, hey, I got a job. I cannot sign the contract unless you give me this document by this date. No response. I called, I did everything, no response, didn't get it. The deadline for me to sign the contract came, and I couldn't sign it because I didn't have the document the way they were. Again, it was a 2-year contract, but like it'll mean the world to me getting the contract during that time, during the pandemic, when like most of my students dropped out. I wasn't performing at all, which was one of the main things I used to do, lots of weddings and things like that.
I find that's the most stressful or most disappointing part about that experience is that it happens everywhere. Bureaucracy, rules, people being slow, or just a lot of miscommunications that happen. And those are the moments where an opportunity passes somebody by because it was at the fault of somebody else not doing their job properly. And it's often a simple task. It's just things that are not organized, things that are not efficient, or things that are not communicated well. That happens very often, and I find that it affects the worst people. And it's those moments that pushes them one way or the other, whether they're going to give up or whether they're going to keep on going. But I think you made a really good decision in understanding that there's no opportunity to move forward here. You have to look elsewhere to focus on what you want to do.
And again, like it wasn't an easy decision. I wouldn't say I was very optimistic when all that happens, but
perhaps that's the suffering we talked about.
Yeah, and like I guess like choosing the problems that you have, right? And I mean, at that time, this was not clear in my head, but now what I see is that like, do I really want to work with them? If that's how they're going to treat me? Do I really want to? And I was telling this to one of my friends, to Clive, who you know, telling this story, and his comment really like stuck with me. He was like, "You offer them your life. when you get a government job like that one, you stay there for like 20, 30, 40 years of hard work. So you know the whole story. I started like working hard at a very young age. Like 10 years later, I accomplished all these things that for me was amazing. I'm not saying I'm the best or anything. It's just like I was really proud of everything that I did. And they say no because I didn't get that little stamp on the document. It's like, do I want to spend like 40 years of my life with these people? Not really. I'm so sorry. I'm sure there's amazing people at all the institutions I applied to work. And like some of them helped me during my undergrad and everything. I'm not saying like they're all bad people. It's like they're great people there, but they made me decide that it was not worth it my time to keep investing and trying to be with them.
Because that's a clear sign that even if you had another accomplishment or you were trying to grow, if you did get the position, whatever it might be, that if there's another opportunity for you to showcase an accomplishment, it would be as easy as somebody forgetting to put a stamp on something. That where that accomplishment would be meaningless in the context of what it's meant for. And it's so arbitrary and so disheartening that of course it's just not working.
And I mean, it's easier to say this now that things are like getting better, but I think it was for the best for me that it didn't work out, honestly.
Well, very nice. Good on you for having that outlook now. I think it would be just working against you if you held resentment.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I don't have any resentment. It's just it wasn't easy. As I said, I almost gave up. They could have been responsible for like ending my career there. Just a series of coincidences that let me here. Of course, like I tried, I went there and like I applied to do something different, but also very thankful for the people that accepted me here. Because if they had said no to, maybe I wouldn't be here now.
Right.
Maybe I wouldn't be playing music now.
So what are you doing now at U of T? What are you doing now at U of T? That's my question.
Yeah, so now I applied for a doctorate degree. It's a hybrid degree where you do a lot of research and a lot of playing too. Even though at this moment I'm more focused on research than playing. Basically, I'm researching, again, talking about Brazilian music, talking about my own culture. And I did a lot of playing and teaching, like TAing in my first and second year, now a little less because I'm having more opportunities outside from school. That's the general idea.
Okay. Yeah. Do you have any more details you could share about your research at the moment? Are you almost completed your research? Is there like a summary that you can share with everybody?
Yeah, so basically my research is about Brazilian rhythms or Brazilian swing. I am measuring note length.
Wow.
That's the general idea. And there is a lot of people that have done that already. And they talk about like how certain styles tend to subdivide in a certain way. And I want to talk about how individual performers do that. And most importantly, how that supports the music material. Like how that relates to harmony, how that relates to what they're talking about in the song, or how that relates to the characteristic of the music and how everything is like tied together. As I call it in the dissertation, is like the expressive use of microrhythms, if you want to get very technical.
The expressive, sorry, say that again?
The expressive use of microrhythms.
Okay. See, that's very interesting to me because when I was at York University, I had a teacher by the name of Mark Eisenman. He was a piano player, jazz guy. He was doing maybe a similar type of research, but for American swing. And he pulled up beats 2 and 4 and recorded a lot of people. And those micro discrepancies between different performers was his way of finding a focused gradient of what swing feels like and why things swing on those beats. Now I'm curious because when I think about that research and I think about all those details that I guess people at your in your discipline, in your area of research, somebody who's doing their doctorate, somebody who's spending all their time and attention on this, how is that data collected? And do you see possibilities for AI and other electronic systems to use that data in a meaningful way to create music? Or is that anywhere in the scope of what you've been thinking about, or other people, your other peers thinking about as well? Because I think the level of detail when it comes to those types of rhythms and that type of exploration of music, if we get down to almost an atomic level with that, I feel like we can extrapolate it up and recreate certain things by plugging it into a machine and see what happens.
there's one group that did something similar to what you described, but it was probably like 5, 6, or 7 years ago. So before AI era, it wasn't very successful. So basically what they're doing is just gathering all this data from quantitative research and try to recreate the rhythms, like ask the computer to play the rhythms. I think it's doable. I don't see it happening in the near future, mostly because the way this is done is a lot of the times is you ask the computer to analyze and measure all the rhythms for you, and you need to pick the criteria that you're going to use to analyze the rhythms.
Right.
And once you look into it, you realize the definition of what is an attack and how you're going to determine the beginning and the end of the note is there's a little bit of a gray line there, and you need someone to make the decision. And if the person making the decision doesn't know the style very well, the result might not be as convincing. And it's kind of hard to find someone that knows like a little bit of everything. So what I do, like I don't go a lot into the computer side of things. I do everything manually, note by note, using specific software that I have. And then I need to use a spreadsheet. But because I know I want to have control on everything, I don't want to tell the computer what to do and like look at the number at the end. Because I play the instrument, I want to look at the note and decide like where this note starts and end, note by note. Because I play the instrument and I know that, for example, if I play a trill or a roll with the instrument that I'm using, it's going to sound like a bunch of attacks. Right. But that's one note for me as a performer. Right. And so there's a lot of things that you need to, about the style that I need to know to make those decisions. And I'm not sure if they're going to invest into all of that anytime soon. I mean, I hope they do, but I don't know.
See, I guess on a slight tangent, when I think about comparing the research of music to the research of, let's say, oh, fuck. Done. Okay, research of music to perhaps like the research of surgery, like a neurosurgeon, perhaps. I think people can relate to, or open heart surgery. People can relate to, I'm dying and I need surgery, and now a surgeon is going to operate on me. They can feel that really viscerally when they're on the operating table. But I think it takes a certain person with some lived experience to have developed a certain relationship with music to even begin to understand and build up that relationship to hear the ideas of somebody who's researching what you're researching, for example. And if somebody hasn't lived the life and built up an identity around music to a certain degree, they would not be able to relate to that type of research. And I think that's interesting because when we think about what is true and what is false, I think it always ties back to the human experience. And what I think was interesting in talking about this is that I think it translates to the bureaucracy. The bureaucracy of how they weighted the music diploma compared to maybe a science diploma, where those details and the discrepancy and the way of categorizing things is being very specific is very important. But then how to be specific with music is not something that everybody relates to in the same way. I find that interesting because you strike me as the type of person who's very clear and aim to be very clear and know one thing versus another. And I see it as not a coincidence, but a no-brainer that you're researching what you're researching and doing the work that you're doing because your lived experience in that way. So I think it all aligns quite well. But to somebody else, where it doesn't align because they don't have that experience or they don't have that connection with music, who's just doing their job in the office, might not really understand why that's even an issue or how to even begin looking at it as an issue to solve.
And I think one of the big questions is like, who's going to benefit from the research that is being done, right? In your example, if it is like something health related, the people that are getting the treatment are interested. But you also have a bunch of companies that make a lot of money with those treatments that are very interested. And who's going to be interested in taking over this research? And what's the benefit for us as performers? Because we're talking about something that can potentially replace some of the live performances. I mean, if AI continues to advance the way it is, it's not impossible. Of course, we're always going to crave for like the human connection. But like, who's going to benefit from all of that? And my take with what I'm doing right now is forgetting about this technology part and just talking about education and pedagogy. Like, why don't we explore those rhythms? Why don't we learn them? And like, how can we learn them better? And how can we change the way the education system is, like music education or rhythm education system, so we can create different things and also so a lot of different types of music that are not yet fully understood can be fully appreciated by other people. In my case, like Brazilian music, I'm sure the way I listen to it and the things that I like about it is not very easy to translate into words to other people that never heard it before, and even to Brazilians, I would say. But when I talk about this research, I can talk about things that people don't normally see in the music, and it will hopefully change the way they see the music. And I'm not saying that Brazilian music is the best music there is. It's just that like I feel that there's a lot of things that we can hear in any type of music, and it takes someone that has the training for us to be able to see all those details. And I think that's helpful for the music community as a whole.
I think so too. I definitely would agree. I think it really parallels with how artists see art or how people can appreciate art. I never was one to look at a painting and feel something, but on a few occasions I did. And those moments were moments where I realized that the experience of appreciating art is something that it's a creative process. Even for the viewer, the person who's just taking it in, their brain is seeing symbols, seeing patterns, connecting it with their experiences and emotions in a way that is truly unique to them. Yeah. While at the same time, if that person can understand and describe it in such detail, they can also share that experience with others. Yeah. And I think what you're doing in your research borrows from the scientific world, but the scientific world is art in itself as well, because it does exactly that. It shares an experience that is so important to that individual and their experience that if they define it in a certain way, they can share it with others, and they can also feel that same appreciation. And I think sharing the appreciation of music in any way, whether it's playing it and playing on a live show, or teaching a student how to play the song, or whatever it might be, or doing research where it can be such a top level thing that can then shower everybody else with those gifts, I think is one of the driving factors of what we do as musicians, and what kind of gives us meaning to continue to do it. And I think you've been doing that for yourself for so long, but I also really appreciate you wanting to share that with others, and keeping that in mind of how it benefits people and who benefits from it. Yeah.
To speak to that, the other side of the equation is like all the music that I do that doesn't really resonate with me, and it's part of my like job as a musician every now and then, and I had to learn like over the years to appreciate this gift of like delivering something to someone that doesn't particularly resonate with me, but it's important to them. There is a history for them, and there's a sentimental value for them. And learning that it's not gonna be like what I wanna do all the time. In fact, a lot of the times when you get paid to do something, it's rarely something that is gonna resonate like a lot with you. But at the same time, there's a lot of value in that too, in just like contributing to somebody else's history when you like you're delivering the music or whatever artistic manifestation to them.
So one reason why I wanted to sit down and have this conversation with you, with cameras and lights, is when we work together with a company called Mabruk. We play drums and dance and do so in a Middle Eastern culture for weddings. We work with our boss, or I guess your colleague, Clive, because I know you're there too. One thing on that note about doing something that we don't necessarily fully love, what we do for work perhaps, what I've been realizing is that with a creative perspective or a musical way of walking through life, there's ways we can extract meaning from other things that give us enough drive to do it in a musical way. So Clive, for example, he really bestowed upon me this vision for people, for entertaining people, for making sure people have a good time, they feel comfortable. And that has translated with how I perform in that work, where I'm not a drummer, I'm a guitarist. I can hit some things once in a while, but connecting and engaging with people is the meaningful part of that gig to me. And more often than not, I'm not worried about the money that I'm making from that gig. I'm worried about and focused on trying to engage with people. When I've learned that, that has informed me to build skills in relation to that, because that is meaningful to me. Because it's equally as meaningful as it is when I'm playing my own music and I want people to listen to that. I'm still engaging with people. So I'm curious your perspective on sort of how you see what's meaningful compared to what you might see as just part of the job with Mabruk. I noticed that you have such a strong business sense involved. You often see the moving picture, all the mechanics behind the scenes, and you share that with us on our gigs. When I'm never concerned about that, but I know you're concerned about that. So how does your maybe in comparing your music that you like to make, that you like to play, compared to the Mabruk stuff, what is meaningful about both of those, and how do they differ?
I think what is meaningful as a whole is connection. And this is going to go back to the conversation that we just had about like the frustration of not getting the jobs I wanted back home. There was a group of people that didn't want to connect with me then. I wanted to connect with them. It didn't work. I moved on. With the music that we do now, they have this music that is part of their culture and they want someone to play it for them on a special day for them. They want to connect. We can provide that and we want to connect with them. I won't say that every single gig that we have is available, is amazing. We have a few that can be a little awkward or just feel like the energy is not there. But again, that's part of any interaction that we have. If you have the same you have conversation with the same person a few times, not every single interaction is going to be amazing with a lot of connection. But again, we're seeking for connection when we're delivering music. When you pick like your own artistic or your own personal kind of music to create, I don't think that at this point I'm creating things for myself anymore. I always think about like who I want to connect. And when I'm playing at like academic settings, it changes a lot. The type of music changes a lot, but the connections are very different, right? I'm playing for my friends, for people that play the same instruments that I play. We can talk about very technical things. We can be very technical about the way you play. That doesn't really work for an entertainment event, which is fine. It doesn't mean like the one is better than the other. It's just the way I see it right now. It's all about connections, and the business come from that too. It's just like understanding how I create those connections and make money from those connections. And again, not in the sense that like, not in a greedy way. It's just like, I learned during the pandemic that I need to make a lot of money. It is very expensive for me to be in the city. So I guess that's part of like one of the things that's always in the back of my head. That like the finances need to be there. Otherwise I'm gone. I don't want to go back. So I need to take the financial part more seriously than I used to. So.
Okay. Yeah, I really appreciate that. I think being a teacher myself, I teach privately. When I connect with my students, that's often when I feel the most accomplished. It's a connection through the means of lesson and student-teacher relations, which is maybe another category compared to technical or entertainment type of things. I'm curious of how you connect with I imagine you're teaching as well. So tell me about your teaching and how connection plays a role in how you operate as you are a teacher.
I've been teaching for like a while. I think I mentioned earlier about the nonprofit I used to teach in the US. I used to teach in a nonprofit in Brazil too. Did a lot of private teaching over the years, and now I'm mostly teaching at a nonprofit here in Toronto called Sistema Toronto. It's a Sistema inspired program. If you don't know what that is, Sistema is an orchestral training program for young kids. The way it works here in Canada is an after-school program that kids go to, and they can have instrument lessons for free. We do mostly like group classes, and then every now and then a few of them get the chance to play for a teacher separately, like one-on-one. We do performances at least twice per year, if not more, depending on what's going on. We have guests coming and like creating music with them. It's very cool and very fulfilling. It's something I really like doing. Not easy, but it's very important to me, and it has always been. I see that a lot of what I've done was about learning, and I guess teaching is about learning too, in the sense that like playing percussion and learning a bunch of different instruments is always like learning new abilities. Feels like I'm always starting from scratch. and teaching is an opportunity to see that in other people. And I feel like the experiences that I had, like learning new things so often, translates to my teaching a lot. I'm never really worrying about technique or like the tiny little details, especially at the non-profit levels. Like I know a lot of those students, they're not interested in taking that as a career like I did, but I'm always emphasizing in my teaching like the process, like learning and how we learn. That's something I talk a lot when I'm teaching.
Very interesting. I never, I worry about that stuff myself when I'm teaching. And when I first met you, I think I got that impression, but I haven't been able to put it into words. But that's one of those things that I think you give off, you share with people without you knowing it, that you appreciate learning about learning and teaching about teaching, teaching about learning. You know, it's
Life is a lesson.
life is a lesson. You know, one reason why I wanted to have these conversations is I've been realizing that when I talk to somebody, that's the best way I learn. When I'm in school, when my teacher's talking to me in a lecture format, but really more of a casual lecture where there's engagement, there's questions, there's some banter, that's when I learn the most. And also in the past few years, I've been listening to some podcasts and it's all conversational style, just one-on-one, having a chat. I find that's the most interesting and engaging way for me to learn. I find that when we speak, we're actually thinking. And when we're thinking, we're actually speaking to ourselves. And the translation process of putting our ideas into words or our words into ideas is just as simple as it is to have a chat. And I appreciate you having a chat with me because there's so much to learn that about people. Because people, I think, are true value. When we think about money, it's when we think about hiring somebody for a gig, what we're really saying is, can you share your time with me? Can you share your life with me? So when Clive mentioned that you're giving your life to that government for that government job, I think I understand that in that way. You really are asking somebody to live for you in that manner or share that life, share their life with you. And that's where the true value comes in. But I think it takes, not everybody understands or appreciates or acknowledges their own life to a degree where they will take ownership of it. I think what strikes me from you is that you've been taking ownership of your life for a long time. And even in the hardest moments where you may not be optimistic. And usually it's those moments where you really have to think about what it is you're taking ownership for and what is your purpose. You know, so I'm curious about when you play music, do you feel like you have a sense of purpose? Or where do you feel a sense of purpose in the process of learning or playing music? And could that be defined in one moment that speaks to you? Or is there multiple moments that kind of make up the idea of purpose when it comes to music?
It's an interesting question because I feel like between 2020 and maybe until last year, I'm not sure that was there all the time. It's usually there. It was there the whole time before the dark times. But as you said that, it reminded me of a few moments that was like on stage or I was playing something and I felt like completely disconnected from everything that I was doing. I do feel that was tied to other things and like the whole dark mental state that the bad situations brought me to. And I feel like I'm coming back to normal now, but in a new way. And I guess it's this realization of like, why I want to do this and who I want to do it for. I'm realizing more and more the things I don't want to do anymore. I won't say that it's not every single gig that I want to say yes to now. And I feel like I need a little bit of balance because in the past I was all 100% like passion. If I was in love with the music or with the meaning or with the mission, I was all up for it. But I guess I had to be like a little more careful now. It's hard to express how it happens though. That's a question that nobody ever asked me before. It's hard to describe like what happens. I feel like when it's there, it's there. It just is. And I think this is true not only for music. Like there's moments, conversation. It's not only about like conversations too. I feel like there are moments that are part of like who you are or who you become. and they stay with you long term. And music for me is one of them for sure. But that can happen through education, through other mediums, like you said. Yeah. First break that we have. Well, I don't know. That was good.
Yeah, I think it was one of your YouTube videos. Now, he has a secret YouTube channel.
Secret YouTube channel.
Internet.
Just for those that know.
Now it's not secret to the 5 people, maybe 6 that's gonna watch this.
And the other 5 that follow me. I'm kidding.
You got a few.
Yeah.
I think it was a video about 2 years ago where you're giving advice about music or music business or how to get into this work. Yeah. And you shared of the point of saying no to gigs. So I feel like knowing that this is something that a lot of people relate to or experience. At a certain point, they have to say no and have to define what they want. Would you say that you've always been trying to figure out or consciously or unconsciously making decisions to know what you want versus what you don't want? Or is it more like recently there's something different that's driving you, that's helping you focus on those things?
Yeah, the whole money thing is more recent, 100%. And it comes from experience and like knowing how much it costs not to be aware of those decisions and how to make them. One of the first meetings that I had with my advisor here at FT, we're talking about life and like how it's going to be for me to adjust here in the city, how it's going to be for me to make a living here in the city. And she looks at me and she was like, how much money you will make is how much time you spent with something. It doesn't matter how much they tell you're going to pay you for the gig, for the lesson, for anything. The moment you start doing something for them, you're working. So if I'm teaching a lesson tomorrow, I'm thinking about the lesson today, I'm spending my time. Yeah. If I need to commute to go there, I'm spending my time. So at the end, I'm gonna do the math of how many hours I spent thinking about this issue and how much money I made. And that's how much money I make per hour. And it's something that was not clear to me at all. And I think a lot of the stress that came, not only like during the pandemic, but right before, came from me saying yes to things I should have said no to. Because I had the passion and I had the drive, I wanted to do it. But if I had sat down and done the math, I was like, I'm making less than minimum wage. Mm-hmm. This doesn't make any sense. And there is this pressure, I feel like, because we're musicians and people know that we want to work for passion and we see something meaningful, there's this pressure that we need to say yes to. And now I learned to express to this person, like, yes, like this is meaningful to me. This is very important and I would love to do it. But let's do the math here with me. This is why it doesn't work. And it's easier now, considering how much more expensive things are for me here, to just say that and make it clear. It's like, under this line, I cannot do it.
Yeah.
And to touch a little bit on the YouTube part and the whole deal with me talking about things on the internet, which is not something I like.
Really?
Not something I like at all. Not really into cameras. Not really into talking about like. I mean, I don't mind like talking to someone. It's just like me. I guess I never wanted to be the star, you know. Never wanted to be like just me, like Alex's show, you know. It was never my idea.
I watched the show.
Yeah,
but I did actually.
But I think back and like trying to imagine like how many people are there in my home country having the same doubts and the same problems that I used to have. And for many years, I had no one that could talk about those things with me. I had to figure out the whole music thing on my own. Yeah. Not saying my parents were not there to help me, but they're just questions that like they were not able to answer. They didn't know, and they still don't. Yeah. And same thing with my friends, and even with my teachers too, because like things are changing so fast. And the people that I study with at university, the jobs and the market was so different that there are a lot of things that I cannot answer anymore. And I feel like I'm finding so many interesting answers just being here and working with the company that we work for. And all the companies I work for, honestly, like the nonprofit, the entertainment group, the academic things that I do. And I look at all of it, I was like, I wish I knew a lot of that like 10 years ago. Yeah. And it maybe my life would be different. Maybe I could have avoided some issues that I encountered. And at the same time, like, why not just like maybe one or two people will see this video and it's gonna help them make a better decision someday, or maybe it's just gonna be entertaining and see like something that they didn't believe was possible to be done with a certain instrument. Because this happened to me so many times in my education. Like I see this instrument, this Brazilian instrument that I've been seeing my entire life, and then all of a sudden there's this North American guy playing in a new way that I didn't imagine was possible. So it's all about trying to open the door for people that might be interested in that. And the cool thing about internet is that this might happen next year, this might happen 20 years from now. I don't know. But it's there, and it's like there's more resources for this group of people now than it used to.
Definitely. I resonate with that quite a bit. My parents still don't understand what I'm doing. They still ask me when I'm going to get my real job. Yeah. And for the longest time, they actively like took the guitar out of my hands when I was trying to play and said, "You're not doing this, do your math homework." And I didn't know what I was doing either. I didn't have a clear vision of that I want to be a musician. But I stumbled into it in the last stretch of my high school. And then I realized that all the people that were around music, specifically at the time my high school teachers who were in the music department, they had an outlook on learning, on life, on interacting with people that was very much from this grounding principle of sharing that, of helping others with their doubt, of hopefully this would serve a greater purpose for somebody in their life as time goes on. And then as I stumbled into my music education, I met a lot more people like that and a lot more people doing interesting things. And the more I learned, the more I realized that the questions I ask myself are the questions that everybody are asking themselves. Yeah. And they have to be answered, and one way or another. And I feel like I've been on this curiosity-driven path through a lot of different mediums. For example, videography and technical stuff, recording or mixing music, or contracting, like painting or mechanic stuff. All these different jobs I've done in my life has always been driven by, how does this work? Why does this not work? How can I fix it? And how can we make this better? And that philosophy has guided me to teaching. And now I think to myself, my parents still don't know what the hell I'm doing. They've given me shit all these years. I've had to make it here on my own in some way or another. But I've also been extremely grateful and very lucky to have so much help to have the support where I am today. I think all those coincidences you mentioned earlier of how you got here, those little coincidences to me are, I see them as green lights. I read this book by Matthew McConaughey called Green Lights, and he describes those coincidences as moments in your life that you can't really explain. It may not be fully justified, or it's not maybe something that was a reward to you, but it's something that it's a gift that helps you move forward and chase down that path of what you think is meaningful. And learning in general and sharing things in general have profound consequences and things that will transcend our time in general. So having the internet and having the ability to share that with on a digital platform that is essentially infinite, because you have binary, you can reproduce this a million times, and it's just a matter of how much energy you put into it. We put in this energy now by living, and hopefully it can be captured and shared into the future.
Yeah, I was reading something that is along the lines of what you're saying. This was actually for my research. I was reading that yesterday. I'm not going to remember who's the author, but anyway. So the author is talking about education and what's the purpose of education. So they're saying that the purpose of the education is to give people the opportunity to develop their full potential. And I like it because you're not saying that you will make the person develop. You're just opening the door for them to enter. You just give them the opportunity to be like who they want to be, or like who they think they should be. It's up to them. And I felt like a lot of what I did was like looking for this opportunity, like to fully develop as a musician. And if you ask me like many years ago, like why I decided to go into this, it was never because of money, obviously. It was never because of like being famous or anything. It was all about developing this ability. And like I wanted to know, like I see a new instrument, I want to know more about it. I want to learn how to play it. Like I hear different type of music that I never heard before. I want to understand how it was constructed, and it was like trying to play myself. It's always this constantly looking for ways to improve on new things that you can learn. And the other thing is that the questions that you ask is the same thing I ask my students all the time. So especially in private lessons, it's easier to do that than with group classes. But I'm always asking where, what, and how. So like, did you make a mistake? Like where? Like where exactly? Note number 2, 3, 4, in the middle of 2 and 3, exactly where? Like what was the mistake? Was it too loud, too soft? You didn't play, you skipped it, you play one extra note, and then what are you gonna do next time, or how are you gonna fix it, right? What are you gonna do next time so that doesn't happen again? You try it, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and then over the multiple attempts, you start fixing things and you get better. And you can do that with anything in life, right? Think about it.
Yeah, I'm sure your students are very grateful for that.
Yeah. I hope so. I hope so. We'll see.
Well, how about we play some music?
Let's do it.
Yeah. Cool. So I'm gonna cut